Lily was having a good day until she turned the corner near the science wing. The hallway of Galactic Integration Academy was crowded with students from a dozen different species, all moving between classes in the organized chaos that had become normal over the past 3 months. Lily had learned to navigate through the tall with their scaled bodies, around the floating with their silver skin, and beside the logical who walked in perfectly straight lines. She was getting used to being one of the few humans at the academy, and most days she even enjoyed it. She did not see the student until it was too late. His name was, and he was carrying a ceremonial drink in a crystal container, something important to his family's traditions. Lily's shoulder caught his arm as she squeezed past a group of students, and the container flew from his grip. It shattered on the floor in a splash of purple liquid and broken crystal. Lily immediately dropped to her knees. She was sorry, she said quickly, reaching for the broken pieces. She had not seen him. She would pay for the replacement. She would do whatever she needed to make this right. Looked down at her with cold, yellow eyes. His scales shifted color, turning from green to an angry red. He did not care about her apologies, he said loudly. Humans were clumsy and stupid. They did not belong at this academy. They did not belong in the galaxy at all. He said she had done this on purpose, that she had attacked him, that humans were violent primitives who could not be trusted around civilized species. Lily stood up slowly. She tried to explain that it was an accident, that she meant no harm, but kept shouting. Other students stopped to watch. Some looked sympathetic toward Lily, but others nodded along with words. Humans were new to the galactic community, and not everyone was happy about their arrival. That was when appeared. He was a security guard at the academy, a tall with dark green scales and arms thick with muscle. He had been working at the school for 15 years, and he had never liked the idea of humans attending. They were from a death world, a planet so dangerous that most species could not survive there for an hour. They were predators who had clawed their way to intelligence through blood and violence, believed they had no place among peaceful species. He pushed through the crowd and saw the broken container on the floor. He saw the purple stains on Lily's uniform. He saw pointing at her with accusation in his eyes. Did not ask what happened. He did not wait for an explanation. He reached down and grabbed Lily by her upper arm, his claws digging into her soft human skin. She gasped at the pain but did not scream. Blood began to seep through her sleeve where his claws broke the skin. Announced that she was coming with him to detention. Humans needed to learn their place. He would make an example of her so that the other human students would understand that they could not cause trouble at this academy. Lily looked up at him with calm brown eyes. Her voice was steady when she spoke, even though his grip was crushing her arm. She told him that he should let go of her. Laughed. The sound echoed off the metal walls of the corridor. He asked if she was threatening him, a small human girl threatening a security officer. He found it amusing. He tightened his grip and began dragging her down the hallway toward the detention center. Lily did not fight. She did not scream or cry. She simply repeated her words, quieter this time. He should let go of her. He did not understand what he was doing. The corridor had gone silent. Did not notice at first because he was focused on his destination and on proving his point about human inferiority. But slowly, the absence of sound began to register. No footsteps, no conversations, no movement at all. He stopped and looked around. Every human student in the hallway had frozen in place. There were only 7 of them among the hundreds of alien students, but somehow their stillness was more noticeable than any noise could have been. They were all looking at him, not at Lily, at him. Their faces showed no emotion at all, which was somehow worse than anger. The alien students had noticed too. They were backing away slowly, pressing against the walls, creating space in the middle of the corridor. A young girl grabbed her friend's arm and whispered that they should leave. A student was recording observations into a device, muttering about unusual human behavior patterns. Heard footsteps, just one set slow and steady coming from the far end of the hallway. He turned to look and saw a human boy walking toward him. The boy was 17 years old, tall for a human but still shorter than. He had brown hair and the same brown eyes as the girl in its grip. He was not running. He was not shouting. He was just walking, one step at a time, his eyes fixed on with perfect focus. Lily looked at the approaching figure and something in her posture changed. She was not scared anymore. She had never really been scared, realized. She had been warning him. The boy's name was, and he was Lily's older brother. He had promised their parents that he would watch over her when they enrolled at the academy together. He had promised himself that nothing would ever hurt her. He took those promises seriously. Kept walking. The other human students remained perfectly still, but their positions had shifted slightly. Noticed that they had spread out, blocking the exits from the corridor, not threatening anyone, not moving toward him, just standing in places that happened to cut off every escape route. The alien students were pressing harder against the walls now. Some were leaving through side doors. A student named, who had human friends and understood them better than most, was counting silently. He was counting heartbeats. He knew what was about to happen, and he knew that had no idea what kind of danger he had just stepped into. Stopped 10 feet away from. He looked at his sister's arm, at the blood soaking through her sleeve, at the claws still digging into her flesh. Then he looked at its face. He did not say anything. He just stood there, waiting, with something old and dangerous swimming in the depths of his quiet eyes. The hallway was completely silent. Everyone was watching. Everyone was waiting. And for the first time in his long career, felt something cold moving up his spine, something that felt almost like fear. Pressed himself against the wall and counted. 1 heartbeat, 2 heartbeats. He was a young, only 16 years old, but he had spent more time with humans than most adults of his species. He had eaten lunch with them. He had studied with them. He had listened to their stories about Earth, about their families, about the things they loved and the things they feared. He understood humans in a way that never would. 3 heartbeats, 4 heartbeats. The human boy named stood perfectly still in the middle of the corridor. He had stopped walking. He was just standing there, looking at with eyes that held no anger. That was the part that scared the most. Angry creatures were predictable. They made mistakes. They could be reasoned with or intimidated. But was not angry. He was something else entirely. Something calm and patient and absolutely certain. 5 heartbeats, 6 heartbeats. Had studied human history. He knew things about them that most species preferred not to learn. Humans did not have claws. They did not have scales or venom or the ability to read minds. They were small and soft and fragile compared to most intelligent species in the galaxy. But they had survived on a planet that killed almost everything. They had hunted creatures 10 times their size. They had crossed frozen wastelands and burning deserts. They had built civilizations from nothing and rebuilt them after every disaster. 7 heartbeats, 8 heartbeats. The secret, had learned, was not in their bodies. It was in their bonds. Humans formed connections with each other that went deeper than logic or survival instinct. They called it love, but that word did not capture the full meaning. A human would die for their family. A human would kill for their family. A human would walk into certain death without hesitation if someone they loved was in danger. 9 heartbeats. Still had not moved. He was looking at with confusion on his scaled face. He did not understand why this small human boy was standing in his way. He did not understand why the other students had backed off. He did not understand why the corridor felt like the air before a storm, heavy and electric, and waiting for something to break. 10 heartbeats. Spoke. His voice was quiet, but in the silence of the corridor it carried to every ear. He told that he was holding his sister. He said it simply, like he was stating a fact about the weather or the color of the walls. He told that he had 5 heartbeats to let her go. Laughed. The sound was loud and harsh, bouncing off the walls. He asked if the human boy was threatening him. He was a security officer. He was 3 times the boy's weight and covered in natural armor. He had claws that could tear through metal. What exactly did this soft little human think he was going to do? Did not answer the question, he just started counting. 1. Shook his head. Humans were amusing. They came from their death world thinking they were special, thinking they were dangerous. They did not understand that the galaxy had species that could crush them without effort. 2. The other human students had not moved. They were still standing at their positions, still blocking the exits, still watching with those empty, calm faces. Noticed that some of them had their hands in their pockets. He wondered what they were holding. He wondered if it mattered. 3. Looked at Lily. She was not struggling or crying. She was just standing there in his grip, looking at her brother with complete trust in her eyes. She was not worried. She knew something that did not. 4. Took one step forward, just one. But something about the way he moved made his grip loosen slightly. It was not a conscious decision. It was something deeper, something ancient, something that lived in the oldest parts of his brain. His body recognized what his mind refused to accept. It recognized a predator. 5. Stopped walking. He was close now, close enough that could see the details of his face. The boy's expression had not changed at all. He was still calm, still quiet, still patient. But his eyes held something that had only seen once before in the eyes of a death world predator that had escaped from a transport ship. Not rage, not hatred, just absolute certainty about what was going to happen next. Told that he was going to explain something. He said that humans did not have claws or scales or venom. They had something else. They had each other. When a human was in danger, other humans came. Not because they were ordered to. Not because they expected a reward. Because it was what they were. He told that every human in this hallway would stand with him. He told him that humans had conquered their death world not by being the strongest, but by being the most loyal. He told him that might be bigger and tougher but fought alone. Humans never fought alone. Then said something that made his blood run cold. He told that he knew anatomy. He knew where the weak points were. He knew which scales could be loose. He knew how long it would take to bring down a creature 4 times his size. He had learned all of this the day his sister enrolled at this academy, because humans always learned the weaknesses of anything that might threaten their families. His grip loosened a little more. His scales were shifting color, the angry red fading to something paler. He was starting to understand. He was starting to see the boy in front of him not as a small, soft human, but as something else entirely. Something that had evolved on a planet where everything tried to kill you. Something that had survived by being more determined, more clever, and more ruthless than anything else. Asked a simple question. He asked if wanted to find out if he was bluffing. The corridor waited. Everyone watched. And the veteran security officer who had never been afraid of anything smaller than himself found that he could not move. His ancient predator instincts were screaming at him, telling him that he was standing in front of something far more dangerous than claws or venom. He was standing in front of a human who loved someone. And that, knew, was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Let go of Lily's arm. His claws retracted slowly, leaving red marks and small cuts on her skin. But he could not simply release her and walk away. His pride would not allow it. He was a security officer. He had a reputation. He could not let a human boy intimidate him in front of all these students. So he shoved her. It was not a hard push by standards. He barely used any strength, but Lily was small and human and caught off guard. She stumbled backward, her feet tangling beneath her, and began to fall. She never hit the ground, moved faster than his eyes could follow. One moment he was standing still, and the next moment he was behind his sister, catching her in his arms, steadying her on her feet. The movement was so smooth and so quick that several alien students gasped. They had never seen a human move like that. They had never realized humans could move like that. Made sure Lily was stable. He looked at her arm, at the blood still seeping through her sleeve. He asked her quietly if she was okay. She nodded and told him she was fine, that it looked worse than it felt. Nodded back. Then he turned to face. He stepped forward, not running, not charging, just stepping. One step, then another. He moved inside the range of claws, so close that they could smell him. Humans had a strange scent, warm and organic and somehow unsettling to reptilian species. Tried to step back but found his feet would not move. Spoke quietly, so quietly that only could hear him. He began listing things. He named the spots between scales where the armor was weakest. He described the nerve cluster at the base of the skull that could cause paralysis if struck correctly. He mentioned the way eyes were sensitive to sudden movement from below, a weakness left over from ancient predators on there. He explained exactly how a human could disable a twice their size in under 10 seconds. He was not threatening, he was not bragging. He was simply sharing information, the way a teacher might explain a lesson. He told that he had studied this for hours. He had practiced. He had prepared. Because worked at the school where his sister studied and always prepared for anything that might threaten his family. Then stepped back. He returned to his sister's side and put his hand gently on her shoulder. He did not say anything else. He did not need to. The sound of footsteps broke the silence. Principal Myra was pushing through the crowd of students, her silver skin glowing with agitation. She was followed by 2 other staff members, a teacher and a human counselor named Hayes. They had been alerted by the security system when grabbed a student without following proper procedures. Principal looked at the scene before her. She saw Lily's bleeding arm. She saw standing protectively beside her. She saw the circle of human students blocking the exits. She saw standing alone in the middle of the corridor, his scales pale and his eyes wide. She saw the alien students pressed against the walls, watching everything with fear and fascination. She asked what happened here. Lily spoke first. Her voice was calm and clear, the voice of someone stating simple facts. She explained that she had accidentally bumped into a student and spilled his drink. She said she had apologized and offered to pay for the damage. She said that had grabbed her without asking any questions and started dragging her to detention. She showed the principal her arm, the claw marks still bleeding through her sleeve. Principal looked at the watching students. She asked if anyone could confirm this account. Several hands went up. Not human hands. Alien students who had watched the whole thing began to speak. A girl said that Lily had apologized immediately. A student reported that had used excessive force on a minor. A young stepped forward and said that Lily had done nothing wrong, that had exaggerated, that had acted out of prejudice. The student whose drink had been spilled lowered his head. He admitted that it had been an accident. He said that he had been angry and had made the situation sound worse than it was. He apologized to Lily. He had not meant for this to happen. Found his voice. He pointed at and said the humans had threatened him. He said they had surrounded him. He said the boy had described how to hurt He said humans were dangerous primitives who should not be allowed at the academy. Principal turned too. She asked if he had touched. Shook his head, he had not. She asked if any human had raised a hand against anyone. Said that no human had done so. She asked if any human had made a direct threat. Was quiet for a moment. Then he said that he had shared information. He had explained what he knew about physiology. He had asked a question, but he had never said he would hurt anyone. He had never made a threat. Principal turned back to. Her silver face was hard with disappointment. She said that she had reviewed the security footage while walking here. She had seen grab a student without investigation. She had seen him use his claws on a child. She had seen him drag her down the hallway while she asked to be released. She said that the only violence she could see was the blood on a child's arm. She said that would report to her office immediately. She said that there would be a full investigation and that he should prepare to explain his actions to the academy board. Opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. He looked around the corridor at all the watching eyes, human eyes, alien eyes, all of them looking at him with judgment, all of them seeing what he had done. Hayes, the human counselor, was already moving toward Lily with a medical kit. She began cleaning and bandaging the wounds while speaking softly to the girl, stood beside his sister, his hand still on her shoulder, his eyes still watching. The crowd began to break up. The alien students drifted away to their classes, whispering among themselves about what they had witnessed. The human students released their positions one by one, moving naturally back into the flow of traffic, as if they had never formed that silent wall at all. Was led away by the other staff members. He did not resist. He did not argue. He just walked between them with his head down and his scales the color of ash. And in the middle of the corridor, a brother held his sister's hand and asked if she was really okay. She smiled and said yes, she was okay because he was there. He had always been there, and she had never been afraid, not for a single moment. Principal's office was a large circular room at the top of the academy's main tower. The walls were transparent, offering a view of the stars and the distant planets of the system. It was designed to remind visitors of the vastness of the galaxy and the importance of cooperation between species. Today, it felt smaller than usual. And Lily sat in chairs designed for multiple species, adjustable seats that could accommodate everything from tiny to massive. Hayes stood nearby, having finished treating Lily's arm. The wounds were shallow and would heal without scarring, but the white bandage around her forearm was a visible reminder of what had happened. Principal sat behind her desk, her silver fingers pressed together in front of her face. She had been running this academy for 20 years. She had seen conflicts between species before. She had seen misunderstandings and prejudice and fear, but she had never seen anything quite like what had happened in that corridor. She told Lily that she needed to understand. She said she had read reports about humans before they were admitted to the academy. She knew the statistics about the death rates, the dangerous creatures, the extreme environments. She knew that humans were considered Category 12 on the Galactic Danger Scale, the highest rating given to any intelligent species. But reading reports was different from seeing. Asked what she wanted to know. Said she wanted to understand what she had witnessed in that hallway. She had seen 7 human students form a perimeter without any visible communication. She had seen them block every exit from the corridor. She had seen approach without any weapon and somehow make a trained security officer too afraid to move. She needed to understand how this was possible. Was quiet for a long moment. He looked at Lily, then back at the principal. He said that he would try to explain, but some things were difficult to put into words. He told that humans were pack animals, not like some species who lived in groups for convenience or survival. Humans needed their packs the way they needed air and water. A human alone was incomplete. A human with their pack was something else entirely. He said that Lily was his sister. She was pack. She was family. Among humans, these words meant something that could not be translated into other languages. When someone hurt his sister, every human nearby felt it. They did not need to be told what to do. They did not need to discuss a plan. They simply moved together because that was what humans did. Asked if he would really have hurt. Did not answer immediately. He looked out the window at the stars. Then he said yes. He said that if had not let go, he would have done whatever was necessary to free his sister. He said that he would have accepted any punishment afterward. He would have faced any consequence, because some things mattered more than consequences. Asked if he understood that violence against a staff member could result in expulsion, criminal charges, even deportation back to Earth. Said he understood completely. Asked why he would risk all of that for a few claw marks on his sister's arm. Looked at her with those quiet brown eyes. He said it was not about the claw marks. It was about what they represented. Someone had hurt his sister. Someone had made her bleed. Someone had tried to drag her away against her will. The severity of the injury did not matter. The only thing that mattered was that someone had threatened his family. He said that we're stronger than humans. We're smarter. We're more logical. Every species in the galaxy had some advantage over humans, but no species loved harder than humans. No species would sacrifice more for their families, and no species was more dangerous when someone they loved was in pain. Turned to Lily. She asked if Lily was afraid of her brother. Lily looked confused by the question. She said no, never. She said was the kindest person she knew. He helped younger students with their homework. He volunteered at the station's food distribution center. He gave his lunch to hungry kids when he thought no one was watching. He would never hurt anyone who did not deserve it. Asked how Lily knew she was safe with someone capable of such violence. Lily smiled. She said that was exactly why she was safe. Capacity for violence was not separate from his capacity for love. They were the same thing. He could be dangerous because he loved deeply. And because he loved her, all that danger was on her side. She had never felt safer than when her brother was nearby. Sat back in her chair. She was beginning to understand something that most species never grasped about humans. Their violence was not random or uncontrolled. It was the other side of their love. The deeper they loved, the more dangerous they became when that love was threatened. It was not a weakness. It was their greatest strength. She asked if this was typical of humans. Nodded. She said that human parents would walk into fire for their children. Human soldiers would throw themselves on explosives to save their friends. Human doctors would work until they collapsed to save strangers. Humans were capable of terrible violence, but almost always in defense of others. Almost always in service of love. Looked at the two human children sitting in her office. The girl with her bandaged arm and her trusting eyes. The boy with his quiet face and his dangerous patience. She understood now why humans had survived their impossible world. It was not because they were the strongest or the fastest it was because they were never alone. Every human carried their pack with them in their heart. And when one human was in danger, every other human nearby became a weapon. She told them they could go. She said that would be dealt with appropriately. She said that she was sorry for what Lily had experienced and that it would not happen again. Stood and helped his sister to her feet. He thanked the principal for her time. Then he walked his sister out of the office, his hand gentle on her back, his eyes watchful and alert. Watched them leave. Then she turned to her computer and began writing a report, not about the incident, about humans, about what she had learned today, about why the galaxy needed to understand that these small, soft creatures from a death world were not just survivors. They were protectors. 1 week had passed since the incident in the corridor. Had been reassigned to a cargo facility on the outer ring of the station, where he would spend his days scanning shipping containers instead of patrolling school hallways. A new security officer had taken his place, a named counselor who had worked with humans before and understood them better than most. But the real change was not in the security staff. The real change was in the way the alien students looked at humans now. Noticed it everywhere he went. He saw it in the cafeteria, where students moved aside to let humans pass. He saw it in the classrooms, where teachers called on human students with a new kind of respect. He saw it in the recreation areas, where alien children approached humans with curiosity instead of suspicion. The story had spread across the station within hours of the incident, not as a tale of human violence, but as a tale of human love. Everyone had heard about the brother who stood alone against a guard. Everyone had heard about the sister who never showed fear because she knew she was protected. Everyone had heard about the human students who formed a silent wall without being asked, without speaking, without any visible signal at all. The students had the hardest time understanding it. Their culture valued individual strength above all else. A child was expected to fight their own battles, to prove their worth through personal combat, to never rely on others for protection. The idea that humans gained strength from their connections rather than losing it was difficult for them to accept. But some of them were learning, had seen young watching human friend groups with new interest. He had heard them asking questions about human families, about siblings, about the bonds that tied humans together. They were beginning to realize that there might be a different kind of strength, one they had never considered before. The students found the whole thing fascinating from an academic perspective. They were telepathically linked to their own families, able to share thoughts and feelings across vast distances. But human bonds were different. Humans could not read each other's minds. They could not share thoughts directly, and yet they still knew what each other needed. They still moved together as if guided by a single will. They wanted to understand how this was possible. They were the most analytical about it. They had started studying human family structures, human pack behaviors, human social dynamics. They were looking for patterns, trying to reduce human love to equations and formulas. They were not having much success, but they kept trying. In the cafeteria, Lily sat at her usual table with her usual group. But the group had grown over the past week. Where once there had been 4 or 5 humans eating together, now there were a dozen students from various species. A girl named had started joining them after the incident, curious about humans after what she had witnessed. A student named Logic 7 had requested permission to observe their social interactions for a research project. Even a few young had begun sitting nearby, not quite at the table but close enough to listen. Sat at the next table over. He was not hovering over his sister anymore. He did not need to. The entire station knew what would happen if anyone threatened her, but he was always there, always present, always watching. Lily glanced at him sometimes and he smiled back, and that was enough. A young student approached the table. He was smaller than most of his species, with pale green scales and nervous yellow eyes. His name was, and he was younger brother. He stopped beside Lily and waited until she looked up at him. He said he wanted to apologize. He said his brother had been wrong to exaggerate what happened. He said had been wrong to grab her. He said his people were wrong to look down on humans. He had been watching them for the past week, and he was beginning to understand something. He had a younger sister too. He thought he understood now what had felt in that corridor. Lily smiled at him. She said that she appreciated his apology, but he did not need to apologize for his brother or his people. She said that everyone made mistakes. She said that what mattered was learning from them. Then she asked if he wanted to sit with them. Looked surprised. He had expected anger or rejection. He had not expected kindness. He nodded slowly and sat down at the table, and one of the human students passed him a container of food from the cafeteria line. Across the room, Principal stood in the doorway, watching. She had been monitoring the situation since the incident, waiting to see how things would develop. What she saw made her hopeful. Humans and aliens eating together, talking together, learning about each other. This was exactly what the Academy had been designed to accomplish. She pulled out her communication device and began composing a report to the Galactic Council. She wrote that humanity should not be judged by their capacity for violence. She wrote that they should be judged by what triggered that violence. Humans were not conquerors seeking power. They were not predators hunting for prey. They were protectors. They had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day, and they had survived by protecting each other. She wrote that perhaps this was exactly what the fractured galaxy needed. Species that fought alone would always be limited by their individual strength. But species that fought together, that protected each other, that loved each other deeply enough to face any danger, those species could accomplish anything. She sent the report and put away her device. Then she watched as Lily laughed at something said, as nodded at his sister from across the room, as students from a dozen different worlds shared a meal together. Was watching too. He thought about everything he had learned about humans over the past months. He thought about their strange, soft bodies and their warm blood and their stubborn determination to survive. He thought about the way he had walked down that corridor, alone against a creature 3 times his size, powered by nothing but love. Humans did not have claws. They did not have scales or venom or telepathy. They did not have any of the natural weapons that other species relied on, but they had something else, something that could not be measured or defeated. They had each other, and was beginning to think that might be the most powerful weapon in the galaxy.